Thursday, everyone. That is becoming my thing, isn't it? Okay, so just for future reference, I'm not actually filming this on Thursday, I'm filming it on Tuesday because I have Chicago rehearsals all of Thursday and I won't get home in time to upload this. So I guess because it's March, we're doing fic reading again. Look at me. I'm actually taking control of something. So, we're doing fic reading, and Erica's busy with school. I don't believe she's joining in this week, but I'm fairly sure Neelam is. I haven't been able to check Gala 5 all week, so I'm sorry if something happened and I'm not taking note of it. But, I haven't, just quickly, I have a little Sherlock necklace. My friend made it. Sherlock chibi. And filming started yesterday, and I am not going to fangirl here because that will make my video almost as long as my Alone on the Water one was. Let's not do that. Okay, so I'm reading a fanfic I wrote myself. And of course it's a John Locke, so that's basically all I'm gonna read, I think. Now I went through a lot, and a lot of my fics have, sexual content. So I picked one that doesn't, simply for this week. And this is a gift fic I wrote for my beta, Rosa. And I wrote it a bit ago, actually, sometime last year. And I have it here on my iPod. And it's called Winter Wrap Up. If you get the reference, kudos to you. And it's... how many words is that? Oh, yeah. 1,805 words. So it's an easy read. And the summary, we'll start with the summary and then we'll go from there. It's winter in England, so it's snowing. Predictable. What isn't? Being snowed into your flat and then, lo and behold, the heat turning off. Charming, isn't it? There's a lot of swearing. Shit, John said, moving away from the window. Shit, 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 shit. Repeated the word 3 times more than necessary. Something has gotten on John's nerves. What is it? Sherlock drawled from the couch, turning his head to look at his flatmate. He looked positively annoyed, due to what his explicits were most likely about. His eyes had slight bags around them. Nightmares again, must fix that. And his jumper was 2 days old. Stressed. About what? Needs further analysis. John sighed, running his fingers through his hair, and looked out the window again. We're snowed in. John didn't face him, but Sherlock could tell that was what annoyed him. Was it so bad being snowed into that flat? Was John looking for better company than Sherlock? Again? Bloody hell, we're nearly out of groceries, and this looks pretty bad. Ah. Boring. Sherlock slumped down, his curls falling waywardly across his forehead. John scoffed and moved over to his armchair, still eyeing Sherlock. We're stuck in here, Sherlock, which means no going to Molly for body parts and no cases. I realise that, John, Sherlock said, rolling over to face him again. I have other means to cure my boredom. Like? Talking. Is this the apocalypse? Sherlock, you never want to talk about anything unless it involves my intelligence or a case. Well, I can use neither of those now, so talking about ourselves is the only option. Sherlock said, his voice painfully exasperated. You already know my whole life, so what's the point? There are things you do not yet know about me, correct? John nodded and fell into his own armchair. Then this is the opportune time to ask me. Sherlock. John hesitated before rubbing his face. Fine. Why do you keep me around? Easy. I needed a colleague, and you became that, and then my friend. My best friend. Sherlock crossed his arms, watching as John's face lit up. Sherlock's insides warmed up, happy that he actually said something right. I enjoy your company, John. Your constant praise and the way you work around me and my, well, gift. His voice was dry when he said that. Knowing what he did was no gift. It could have been a curse, making him intelligent above all others, yet making him lack basic social skills. Mummy once took him to a psychiatrist who diagnosed him with Asperger's syndrome. Father said it was a load of bollocks, and the Holmes family never spoke of it again. Well, you're my best friend too, Sherlock, and I kind of have to put up with you, John joked, his irritation slowly fading. Alright, you ask. Sherlock smiled at him, his eyes flickering over John's form, reading him. You often express your distaste in my attitude. So what do you actually enjoy about me? Jesus, Sherlock, what a question. John laughed, giggled before he answered. The way you ignore insults, that's pretty amazing. And how you can solve cold cases in less than a month? You're very fascinating. Sherlock glowed from John's confession, and he smiled almost shyly at his flatmate. The warmth in his face was something John didn't get to see very often, and it made him quite happy. The questions ranged from, when was your first kiss, or, are you actually a virgin, to, who's your favourite musical artist, or was there anything you wanted to do besides what you do now? The two men laughed, hesitated, and joked with each other, much like a normal night besides the fact that there was a blizzard going on outside, and the heat was about to turn off. Jesus, Sherlock, what did you do now? John yelled a few hours after their questions started. It was 10:30, and the power had just switched off. Sherlock's head popped in from the hall. That wasn't me, John, Sherlock said, walking in. Wow. His breath slowly starting to become visible. I'll, get rugs? Good idea, John said, starting to shiver. Brilliant. Just bloody brilliant. It's fucking freezing, and there's a snowstorm going on, and we have no power. Don't blame me, was the reply he got. John rubbed his arms, his mood falling again. Sherlock came back into the sitting room with an armful of blankets. He threw some at him and then himself onto the couch, where he curled beneath the ones he had. He was still shivering as he watched the snowfall outside, almost like a thick white curtain. As beautiful as it was a huge inconvenience at this time. John made a cocoon out of his blankets and sighed. Wonderful, he groaned. What's the bet? We're the only ones in London affected right now. Unlikely, Sherlock replied. This is a big storm. At least 60% of London would have been affected. Always the optimistic. I try. Both men were silent, John closing his eyes and trying to focus on keeping warm while Sherlock just looked at him, still feeling the warmth from their earlier confessions. There was one thing still left to be said, but that could wait. Not important. It was a secret he could keep until his death. But nonetheless... John. Come over here. Combined body heat should keep us warmer for longer. Sherlock leaned back on the couch, watching the decision play in John's ever-open features. He seemed to make up his mind as he bundled up the blankets around his feet and waddled over to the couch. To watch John waddle was humorous, to say the least, but Sherlock kept a specially crafted straight face. His flatmate's weight fell against the couch, and John twisted into a position that seemed to be comfortable for him. Sherlock, as he was doing this, had lifted the blankets and now pulled them over John and snaked an arm around his waist. John went willingly into his side without hesitation. Don't do that, cat. Which caused alarm bells to ring inside Sherlock's... Come on. Inside Sherlock's head. John spread out his blankets across himself and tucked his legs close to his chest, his right knee brushing Sherlock's side. His hands pulled the blankets up again, and once he was satisfied, he leaned his head against Sherlock's shoulder and stopped shivering a few moments afterwards. So it does, he remarked after many minutes of silence. Sherlock's heart was annoyingly racing at John's slight, practically intimate contact, and the fact that John had not removed his arm from around his waist. The embrace was awkward, but it was comfortable and warm. Sherlock. Yes? This wasn't your idea of trying to cuddle on the couch, was it? Sherlock's voice wasn't cold or brittle, but filled with laughter. Sherlock twisted his head to look at him, and almost had a shock at how close John's face was to his own. His eyes were blue, were deep. I am really bad at this. His eyes were deep, were blue like the ocean, beckoning him, and Sherlock found himself wishing he could just stare into those eyes for eternity. Of course, eternity was impossible, but it was a figure of speech. His features were open, slack, trusting, and his lips were smiling, a light pink that contrasted beautifully with his fading Afghan tan. Of course not, Sherlock eventually answered. his tone not as collected as he would have hoped. John chuckled, a movement that Sherlock heard and felt. John's body was vibrating slightly beneath his arm, and his head was shaking a little. For a genius, you're clueless, as you so constantly love to inform me. John smiled, and one of his hands touched Sherlock's free one. Sherlock went still, almost unable to hold John's eyes. John smiled wider at his reaction, and his thumb stroked the back of Sherlock's hand. Sherlock definitely didn't feel cold now. He felt like his skin was like a furnace, burning at 68.7 degrees Celsius, hotter than their own fire. John chuckled again, but didn't comment. Sherlock closed his eyes What? Closed his eyes and parted his lips, trying to center himself, but it was no use, seeing as John kissed him at that very moment. It was soft, a question that had longed to be asked. Sherlock answered with enthusiasm, but not too much, as it would make the kiss turn into mauling or anything inappropriate. John moved his fingers through Sherlock's and intertwined them, his control of the kiss never wavering. Sherlock was glad to let him control it, just this once. Which meant there was going to be more kissing. Oh yes, thank you. The kiss didn't proceed from the movement of lips, no tongue or teeth or biting. It was a beautiful first kiss, and Sherlock didn't find many things beautiful. When John pulled away, Sherlock opened his eyes very slowly. "You're straight," was the first thing he remarked. John burst out into a fit of giggles, which soon had Sherlock joining in. John's hand was tight around his own, and his whole body was vibrating now. "Sherlock, you don't say that after a kiss," John wheezed once the giggles subsided. "But it's the truth." Sherlock, John said, suddenly serious. "These feelings, I've had them for a while, honestly. At first, it scared me. But I don't care if you're a man. All I care about is what is on the inside, your brilliance, and and your ability to care in obscure ways. You are a beautiful man, Sherlock." I'm looking at feeling my foot. "I've seen the way people look at you, men, women alike, with distaste." Sherlock interrupted and went to say more, but John pressed his lips to his again, the beginnings of a smile at the corner of his mouth. "You're an ass, we've established that, but you're a beautiful one. Once people get over your, attitude, they stare at you like you're a Greek god or something like that." Oh, God. "You do captivate people, Sherlock." "Hardly," Sherlock murmured. "I hardly think my face deserves the attention you say I get. At least yours is normal and plain, and I could watch it all day. You're so expressive, John. It's breathtaking." "Could you just admit that I was attractive?" John was smiling again, his eyes glowing with happiness. "Of course I did. I was simply stating the truth." That earned him another kiss, and another, and another. Sherlock was kissed until his lungs screamed for air and his mind seemed to have gone into lockdown. "I wanted to do that for a long time," John murmured against his lips. Sherlock definitely agreed. "And I would very much like to keep doing it." Sherlock sought out his lips again, and the kisses became heatier and deeper, now beginning to involve tongue. They continued to do this long after the heat had come back on and the storm had passed. Only goes to show that Mother Nature has a few tricks up her sleeve when it comes to sexual tension. And that's it. So, yeah, I can say, and I don't necessarily like my writing, but I can say that I got better from there, but that is actually one of my best, and that is awkward. Okay, so I will speak to you all later. Fare thee well. Happy Thursday, even though it's Tuesday here. I need to plug my computer back in before it dies. Goodbye, children.